And we're live. Welcome to our stem cell activation patch question and answer session. So Emily, I want to thank you for joining us here. I'm going to go over the information about the stem cell activation patches, and I'll open it up so that you can ask any questions that you might have about the patches, okay? So let's get started here. Let me share with you my screen. Okay, so before we get started, we'll start with our disclaimer. Our disclaimer here says that these patches are not intended to treat, prevent, or cure any disease. We do not heal, cure, treat, or diagnose. The suggestions do not replace the diagnosis and treatment by a qualified licensed healthcare professional. We strongly suggest and recommend you consult with your doctor concerning your specific health challenge and treatment needed. No medical claims are being made with the suggestions here. So let's get started. And here we're getting started, and I like to show people what stem cells actually look like. Sorry about that, I accidentally hit the mute button. So stem cell activation patches, and this is an actual picture using an electron microscope showing you what an actual stem cell actually looks like. And I will figure out how to make this image a little bit bigger, but basically this image here is just showing us that when a stem cell is activated, it has the ability to create whatever kind of cell your body needs in the moment in time that it needs it. So it can create a heart cell, skin cell, nerve cell, whatever cell it is that your body needs, it will create it in real time. So I like to equate your body is basically like a home. So if you look at when you're building a home, you can't start with the roof or the walls. We always have to start with the foundation, right? So as you build the home's foundation, the equivalent in stem cells would be your mother stem cell activation patch, and that would be the X39. So let's talk a little bit about what a mother stem cell activation patch does. The first thing is that it's important to know that by the time you're 30 years old, 50% of your stem cells actually turn off. And by the time you're 60 years old, almost 100% of those stem cells turn off, which is why people in their late 30s, their 40s, their 50s, and their 60s, you start to see the gradual increasing of inflammatory conditions, diagnoses of cancer, GERD, IBS, diabetes. There's an infinite list of conditions that people might suffer from, fibromyalgia, goes on and on and on, right? So let's talk about how these stem cell activation patches, how do they work? And the stem cell activation patches actually work through your body's own infrared light. So I wanted to show you guys, I actually have a BioWell machine, which I can actually measure the joules of energy that every organ in your body creates and the organ systems create. So for example, your digestive system. So if you look at your hand, if you were to look at the human body using infrared light goggles, night vision goggles, I would actually see the infrared light would be glowing from all of your body. Because as you're aware, our body is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. It's heat, right? That heat is because there's light inside of your body, and just like a light bulb, you touch a light bulb, and because it's generating heat, it's generating light, but that light generates heat, like the sun. The sun is generating light, but it's generating heat simultaneously. And so does your body. So your human hands glow, And so that is the power source. That is the battery, if you will, to activate these patches. So what happens? We've got the mother stem cell activation patch, and that first one is called the X39. And this, when you put the patch on your skin, the moment you put the patch on your skin, your body's infrared light bounces off of this little crystal lattice. I'm going to hold it up to the camera here so that you see the little crystal lattice. And when your body's infrared light bounces off of that crystal lattice is created to mimic a diamond crystal. If I were to take a light and shine it on a diamond, we all love diamonds because they have all the different colors of the rainbow, right? Well, this crystal lattice is mimicking a diamond crystal, and it's put in a formation to activate GHKCU in your bloodstream. So as your bloodstream now has activated that copper peptide, it's turning on the stem cells. And the first thing that it does is it's going to repair cellular damage. It's going to restore the collagen in your cells. It's going to rebuild the scar tissue, reduce fine lines and wrinkles, increase your energy. It also will increase your sexual libido, antioxidants, anti-aging, anti-inflammation. And if you have pain, people report within 3 to 4 minutes a 50 to 100% reduction in pain, as well as improved sleep. And a lot of people like myself will report back that you have improved and increased hair growth. So that's the mother stem cell activation patch. And I like to say that this is your foundation. So it's like you're building a house. Before you put your flooring, your walls, and your roof, you have to have a good foundation. So that's the mother stem cell activation patch. Next, we are going to add the daughter stem cell activation patch, and that's like your bearing wall. Oh, by the way, did you know that collagen is the most abundant protein in the body? It's what forms the cytoskeleton, the structure of the cell. And so the first mother stem cell activation patch is actually increasing your collagen so that you have that to reset your health and well-being. So I'd like to point out that our stem cells are kind of like a printer. Like we all have printers at home to make photocopies and so forth. And when you look at a printer, you have a colored cartridge, right? You've got tricolor cartridges, and then you have your black cartridge. And as you begin using your copier and you start to make colored copies and black and white copies, you see that you can't tell the difference between the original and the copy, right? But when you've used up 70, 80, 90% of the ink in those cartridges, now when you make a copy, that color copy is a faded copy. And the black and white copy is now a gray and white copy instead of a black and white copy. The same thing is true when you only have 50% of your stem cells left, when you only have 30%, 20%, 10% of your stem cells. Now, the copies of those cells that the stem cells are creating, they're not crisp originals. They're faded copies of the original, which is why you have oxidative stress. That's why you have different chronic inflammatory conditions, different types of cancers and so forth. Neural conditions like multiple sclerosis, like Guillain-Barré and so forth, which also has to do with a malfunction of your immune system. But it all has to do with the deterioration of the quality of the cells that are being produced, because you only have 10 or 20% of your stem cells that are creating the new cells. So with these stem cell activation patches, we're resetting, 33% are turned back on. So now with the daughter stem cell activation patch, now you have your foundation of the mother stem cell. Now you're going to have the daughter stem cell activation patch. And with that, this stem cell activation patch provides radiation poisoning and relief. It increases your lean muscle mass, your bone density, your muscle mass and strength, energy, focus, your cardiovascular system. It protects you against 5G, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi radiation. It reduces your belly fat because this stem cell activation patch, a lot of people who work out love this patch because of the increase in stamina, vigor, and vitality, but it burns whatever belly fat you have first in order to fuel your body. And this also, if you have osteoporosis, it will help your osteoporosis. So this is now the bearing wall of your body, which is your house. Your body is basically your temporary housing unit for the personality and the soul and spirit energy that is you. So next, we're going to go to glutathione. And this glutathione patch, this would be like your next wall. Whoops, sorry about that. And the glutathione patch is a master antioxidant. Glutathione is actually, your brain signals your liver to produce it in your liver. And then your liver literally will send it to every single organ in the body and all the muscles of your body, because glutathione is present in all organs and all muscles. This glutathione master antioxidant will increase your immune system and increases your antivirals. And at the same time, it detoxes your body from toxins, but also from any germ, virus, or bacteria that doesn't serve it, because in your body's, in its book, in its blueprint, is those foreign agents or toxins. They don't serve your body. So it goes to, that's why the two are closely related, your immune system, as well as the detoxifying aspect of glutathione, the antioxidant. So when you apply this to your skin, within 24 hours, your glutathione levels are boosted 300 to 600%, depending on the individual. And it'll stay at that 300%, provided that you wear the patch every day. And it's very important that you drink 50% of your body weight in fluid ounces of water. Otherwise, the new cells that have been created will get stuck along the way, because your cells will get sticky, and that new cell won't get to the destination of where it needs to go in order to repair your body. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So the next patch, your next wall, because we have the bearing wall, we have your second wall, right? Your third wall of the Fantastic Five is carnosine. Carnosine is another master antioxidant. And this master antioxidant, I like to tell people to think about carne asada tacos, because carne means meat in Spanish. And so carnosine has to do with all the muscles of the body, all things related to the heart and the cardiovascular system. This patch also improves healthy brain function, memory, focus, and brain processing time. It will increase your strength, your stamina, and your endurance. It detoxes your brain from aluminum, and it aids in wound healing. But let's talk a little bit about this detoxing the brain from aluminum. So often we will, order takeout food, and that food is given to us in an aluminum container. It might have a plastic top, or maybe it's aluminum container with an aluminum covering on top. How many of us have drunk a beverage, whether it's beer, juice, water, soda? A lot of us will drink beverages out of an aluminum can, and we don't really think twice about it. However, we're getting trace amounts of mineral because the liquid or the food is touching that aluminum. And by definition, now we're ingesting little particles of aluminum. Well, we've known for 25 years that aluminum is a known neurotoxin, which is why back in 2014, at the clamoring of consumers, Tom's Organic Toothpaste, which is one of the largest organic toothpaste manufacturers, in the world, their consumers kept on saying, how are you creating, Tom's Organic Toothpaste in an aluminum tube? You've got to change the packaging. It can't be in an aluminum tube. We know that aluminum is a known neurotoxin, right? And so Tom's toothpaste then changed it to a recyclable plastic. And then a lot of the other, most of the toothpaste makers all converted to a recyclable plastic container instead of aluminum. But to this day, there's still a lot of products that are in aluminum. And there are people that are working in environments where they're getting exposure to aluminum. It's being absorbed through the skin, any kind of plants where there's all sorts of different metals and so forth. And so this patch is going to go to detox your body from that, along with the glutathione patch. So this is a very powerful patch for that particular reason. And so then the next one is the Master Anti-inflammatory patch. This is going to be your next wall, the fifth of the Fantastic Five. And this patch, it's called Aeon. Aeon is the name of the Master Anti-inflammatory. We call this the anti-stress or the happy patch. Now, the anti-stressor happy patch raises actinoplastins. It increases DHEA. A lot of people take DHEA supplements, or they eat extra seafood so that they get the proper DHEA levels in their body. This patch also increases brain balancing of your right and your left hemisphere of your brain. So this causes a calming effect, and it reduces the cortisol levels and the C-reactive proteins in your body. Our adrenals, when we are in a fight or flight response, if we're under stress, if we're frustrated, if we are under a lot of tension, our cortisol levels go up because our adrenals are working overtime, right? And then the C-reactive proteins, again, as a result of your fight or flight response, that is elevated inside your body. For people who have, let's say, different types of arthritis, we oftentimes see a high level of C-reactive proteins. There's a whole list of chronic inflammatory conditions that we see elevated levels of C-reactive protein. However, we're very fortunate that this patch will actually bring everything into balance. It will reduce the cortisol and C-reactive proteins. And a lot of people have a genuine feeling of happiness in the 3 to 4 week mark of them wearing these patches. So I love this patch because you can also use it as a pain management tool. The stem cells are attracted to inflammation in the body. This patch is designed to bring down inflammation in the body. So if you are experiencing pain, you can actually point to where you feel the pain, and then you could put this Aeon patch on that spot. If you have bone on your shoulder, on your knee, and your hip, if you've had any kind of a surgery anywhere, you can take that patch, point to where you feel the most pain, and that will bring the inflammation down immediately. In fact, my daughter had a foot fracture just a couple months ago, and I had run out of the Ice Wave patch. We have a patch called Ice Wave, which doesn't repair anything in the body, but it turns off your pain receptors. It's a pain management patch, 70% more powerful than hospital grade morphine. But I had run out. I would keep on running out. It doesn't matter if I buy half a dozen, 20, they go like this. And I have people all the time asking me to send them an Ice Wave. They want to buy an Ice Wave patch, and I can't seem to keep them in stock. I'm perpetually ordering them. So I happened to be in between orders, and so when she broke her foot, I did not have any Ice Wave on hand. So I knew that I had to use a Fantastic 5, and that I would be heavily relying on this Aeon patch and using more. Instead of just one patch, I knew that I had to put this on the spot where she had the fracture. And so I'm going to actually show you a picture of her foot, because it was incredible. We patched her at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. By 6 hours later, because I told her, okay, it's 2 o'clock now, 6 hours later would be 8 o'clock tonight. I want you to report back to me what your inflammation levels are like and what your pain level is like. And it was incredible that 6 hours later, she told me she had 0 pain and all of her inflammation, her foot, which had ballooned, it basically, all the swelling was gone. It was like incredible. Let me see if I can pull here, because I took screenshots of this. Wasn't planning on showing this, but right now I feel that it would be good to show. Okay, so here we go. So here's her foot. I wish I would have taken a picture before I put the bandage on there, but you can see, whoops, you can see her foot. You can see her foot, and you can tell that it's swollen because she broke that big toe. There was a red line all the way across because she broke the toe. And then, so then the next day, so I was like amazed. There was like no inflammation, no pain. So now I told her, okay, tonight, tomorrow morning, I want you to report back to me what your pain level and what your inflammation is. So then the next morning, she reported back to me. She still had no pain and no inflammation. And she said she had a lot of bruising, which is expected because when you have a fracture, of course, the tissue, you've got the bone that broke and all the tissue that's around it, it broke too. So you've got bleeding, which is what causes the bruising, right? So her foot, of course, is black and blue. But you can see that the inflammation is gone, even though it's bruised. So that's her foot. Okay. But no inflammation and no pain. So that was Sunday morning. Monday, still no pain, still no inflammation. The bruising is worse. So you could see how the foot's all black and blue and purple. So much worse on Monday in terms of what it looks like, because there's a lot more bruising. And she says here, bruising is darker today, but not too bad. And then the next day, so now we're talking Tuesday, and she goes, Monday, I'm good. Foot is feeling a lot better. I actually was able to go for an hour walk yesterday. So her foot looks like it's totally normal. And so fast forward to, for her foot to entirely be completely restored, it took a month. Instead of it taking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, 1 month later, she was able to play soccer, run, jump, no longer having to, because at 3, 4 days, she still couldn't bump her foot. Her foot was still being repaired, right? But at the 4-week mark, then her foot was totally fine, where she was completely 100% healed at the 4th week, once she finished 4 weeks of wearing the patches, and from the day that she had that injury. So that's actually a personal testimony. I'm going to show you one other person here who they were all black and blue also from an injury. And this was the first day of their injury. You can see how their arm is all black and blue. And then here is a few days later, you can see how they're all the bruising gone. Okay, so let me open this up now for questions, because we've gone through the Fantastic 5. We talked about the mother stem cell activation patch. We talked about, the foundation. We've got the bearing wall, the daughter stem cell activation patch, and then the 3 supportive patches of Glutathione, Carnosine, and then Aeon, which are the supportive patches. These are the 5, I call them the Fantastic 5. This is the foundation to everything. Then depending on whatever condition you have, if you just want health and wellness, or you're somebody who's optimizing your body for peak performance, because you're an athlete, you're either competing, bodybuilding, the Olympics, you're, high school, college, sports and so forth, Fantastic 5 will do the trick. If you have something that you're trying to repair in your body, improve eyesight, fractures, get over, anyone who's had, as an FYI, anyone who's had general anesthetics for any kind of surgery, one of the things that I learned, I actually was one of the associate producers for Quiet Explosions, Healing the Brain documentary. You can watch it on Netflix or Amazon Prime. We discovered that one of the things that is inherent to you suffering when you are put under general anesthetics is you end up getting a traumatic brain injury, because as we lower the vitals, in order for the general anesthetics to take, your brain is deprived of oxygen, which automatically gives it a traumatic brain injury. So we actually featured in that documentary, if you watch that, one of the surprises that we had no idea that Alan, who was Jerry's our executive producer and the director for that documentary, her husband, 23 years before, had quadruple bypass surgery, which saved his life when he was 50 years old. Now he was 73, 23 years. He had no idea that he had a traumatic brain injury. None. It wasn't until we did this documentary, we scanned his brain. Dr. Daniel Amen, I worked on the segment with Daniel Amen. Dr. Daniel Amen scanned his brain, and there it was, the traumatic brain injury. It was from 23 years before. It was incredible. So if you've had any kind of general anesthetics for any kind of surgery that you may have had for whatever reason, guess what? These stem cell activation patches will recover your brain focus, your memory, your brain processing speed. It'll improve your cardiovascular system. The things that I just reviewed just a few minutes ago. Emily and Renee, or Renetta, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. If you have any questions, just unmute yourselves, and I would love to answer any questions that you might have.
Lillian. I'm Emily. I've been using Lifeway patches since 2018. So I'm a veteran. And I just became Sunday's downline maybe about a month ago or so. Wow. So I'm familiar with the patches and been, following you since I met a Sunday. And I guess it was the remarkable treatment that her father received, and the guidance that you gave her for him. And so that's how we became acquainted with you, or Renette, because I invited Renette to this also, because she actually is following you also,
So is your name Renette?
She's Renette.
She's Renette.
I'm Emily.
Okay.
Okay. So, but we do have a question regarding that, as opposed to the information you just outlined, because we're, like I said, we've been listening to you, so we're pretty knowledgeable about the things that you've been teaching us.
Okay.
And in regards to, is it okay if I ask you a question about the treatment for Sunday's father?
Sure.
Okay. Because he initially went in the hospital and he was bleeding, correct?
He was hemorrhaging, yeah. He was urinating blood and had terrible stomach pain. Yeah.
And then so you were able to guide her in patching. Do you recall? I can't remember now what patches that you had suggested that she used.
So we had the Fantastic Five, and it's interesting because she had originally ordered those patches for herself because she has a mold thing kind of going on. And so she didn't know that her father, within 24 hours of her receiving the patches, that he was going to end up, in the ER. And so next thing she knows, she gets this phone call from her mom or to her dad saying that, he's in this horrible pain. He's urinating and defecating blood. And he's, I can't imagine how scary that would be, but it's got to be very alarming, scary. And at the same time, I can't imagine what's going through your head, because that's a lot of blood loss in a very short period of time to experience. So your thinking is not going to be the same as if you have all, your body's obviously in shock. Yes. So as soon as she told me what was going on, I said, we need to patch him and we need to get his bleeding to stop immediately. And I already knew what the emergency room protocol was, because I started off in emergency medicine. So I was very well versed with what they were going to do for him. So she met him at the hospital, and, they always put you on a gurney once they take you in from the waiting room, and then they, surround you with, the little curtain to give you privacy and so forth. And so I told her, it's like, okay, we need to immediately patch him and we need to get him to stop bleeding, and we need to take his pain levels down, because the pain is just exciting the autonomic nervous system unnecessarily, even though pain is a signal that there's something wrong. Obviously, it's something. Right. Pain is also there to curb your behavior, because something you did or have been doing is not working the way, it's not giving the outcome that you want. So as soon as she got there, then we immediately started patching. The ER doctor and the nurses were well aware that he was being patched. They were like totally fine and cool with it. And so we immediately patched him. We had him drink probably, I think, 12 ounces of water. And then I did a neurosomatic method to bring his pain level down as he was sitting there waiting, for himself to be, tended to. Because in the emergency room, they do something called triage, which means they sort, sift, and separate through the people that they have at hand. And anyone who's on the borderline of between life and death, if you're balancing between life and death, they have to take you first to tip you over to life, so that you move away from death. So if you're in shock, if you show up and you've passed away, there's nothing else they can do for you. You're already gone. But if you are, titillating between the two, with a high level of shock, or if you have some sort of anaphylactic, a severe allergic response to somebody with an advanced allergic response, we need to tend to them right away, because if their airway cuts off, then they're not going to be breathing. So then we have to tip them over. The whole thing is to stabilize people in the
Right.
EO. So in his case, he's urinating and he's defecating blood. So they're going to tend to him. But if you have someone who has a chopped off arm, that's more pressing than him. I don't know how busy the ER was, because that really wasn't my concern. I was just concerned with dealing with him at that time, get his bleeding to stop, and then get his pain level down. So after we patched him, and we put his patches all the way down his spine to start off with, after drinking some water, then I did a neurosomatic method with him. It was the whole thing was about an hour between patching and during the neurosomatic method. All I'm doing during a neurosomatic session is I'm rewiring, relinking your right and your left hemisphere of your brain, and then I'm moving the direction of your energy in the opposite direction, so it undoes the damage that's been done by the condition that you have in the moment. So it's a manipulation, if you will, of brain mechanics, because my specialty comes in understanding how the brain mechanoceptively works. We have 8 systems of the body, and so once you know what the 8 systems are, how the 8 systems work, how they are supposed to operate, the direction in which the energy is supposed to go in, then when you see something's wrong, you can switch it back, and then basically relink the right and left hemisphere of the brain and move the energy in the right direction, so it undoes the damage that it's been doing up until that moment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's separate from some sessions that I do with stem cell activation, stem cell activation, but that's in a nutshell, I think, the answer to your question.
what was the name of the book that you, or the documentary that you helped produce?
That's called Quiet Explosions. You can go to quietexplosions.com. In fact, I have an interview with Jerry right before it premiered. We had Jerry on, and I actually have 2 versions of that talk, because one of the things, having been I had a traumatic brain injury myself almost 6 years ago and came out of that. For some people who have traumatic brain injuries, the speed at which you talk can be a challenge, because they can't catch every word you're saying. And also, depending on, what kind of traumatic brain injury they have and the severity of it, the lighting and the flashing of images sometimes is bothersome, where it's very disruptive, where they can't hear because it triggers something in their brain. So I did one version regular, and then I have the 2.0 version, basically because I understood how the brain works. And there were people who were saying, what, some of the flashing, some of this is bothering. I really want to hear this content, but I can't. So I did there's a 2.0 version of that traumatic brain injury, Quiet Explosions interview with Jerry Sher. And if you have someone who has that cognitive compromise, I always tell people in YouTube, the beauty of YouTube is that you can hit the little gear on the right, and you can either make things so that you're watching them at 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/4 twice as fast, but you can also make it slower so that it's at 75% instead of 100 or 50% or 25%, so that you can really slow it down so that it's easier. And, if you've had a traumatic brain injury, or you've had a concussion or many concussions, it is sometimes challenging. Some people speak really fast. I don't speak super fast, but I do speak faster, I think, than most. So I like to point that out because it might help someone out there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Renette has a question.
Well, I was just curious about the chemo part, about Sunday's father.
Okay.
How many sessions do you think he had?
So I know he had at least the first session he had, I want to say that was because he started Friday, August 26th. And then I want to say about 3 weeks later, I believe he had a chemo session. So I'm going to share with you what the convention, what the norm, what they recommend in terms of using the stem cell patches with chemo or radiation, and then my take on it. So my approach is always very focused and concentric to the individual, because Yeah, I always read the research studies because I think it's important to have that empirical data. However, not everybody is going to fall within the parameters of the research studies. But I like to give the example, my own personal example. Everybody knows, I mean, very few people are unaware of the fact that since penicillin came on board about 125 years ago, penicillin has saved millions and millions, probably billions of lives, not millions. It's probably in the billions of lives that have been saved as a direct result of people taking penicillin upon having some sort of infection. And there's plenty of research to back the benefits that most humans will have from taking penicillin when they have a bacterial infection, for example. However, in my particular case, if you were to give me penicillin, within 6 to 7 minutes, I would be dead because I'm highly allergic to penicillin. So even though it doesn't matter the number of research papers that say that it could save my life, in my life, it will take my life instead of save my life because I happen to be allergic to it. So because of that, I really respect the integrity of each person's system. And I look at each, we have thumbprints that clearly not even twins share the same thumbprint. And I recognize that your body chemistry is the same way. There's a certain chemical, neural, and energetic thumbprint that you have. So I try to respect that when I'm dealing with people. That being said, I know that people also look at, the stem cell patches, even though they're very affordable compared to regular stem cell therapy. Regular stem cell therapy, one injection is like 11 grand. And if you need several of those, you could pay up to 50 grand for stem cell therapy. And it's not even your own stem cells. It could be. Sometimes they will take your own blood and centrifuge that out. But oftentimes it's a donor stem cell, which you only have a 50% probability that it'll take. And it works in many cases. However, these, even though they're affordable, there's still an expense involved in getting the stem cell activation patches. So some people say, well, why waste your money wearing a stem cell activation patch when the chemo is going to kill it all? Okay, to which I say not just my intuitive hit, I Bluetooth to people when I do a session with them. So my intuition and Bluetoothing to Fiend in that moment was I knew that he needed the protection from the Fantastic Five. This particular patch creates something called a Faraday cage, which is an electromagnetic field that protects you against Wi-Fi radiation, Bluetooth poisoning, blue light toxicity from LED lights, etc. Which in hospitals, we have a lot of blue light toxicity because everything is LED and the monitors all have LED lights. It's like you're like LED bombarded. And you have a lot of electromagnetic frequencies because of all the electronics that are in every hospital. It's inevitable, right? So I knew that he needed to wear these patches every single day, even through chemo, and not stop wearing them during chemo, because this was going to give him extra energy. And he was going to be able to, the glutathione is also detoxing whatever is harming you that's in chemo or radiation. This patch in conjunction, because these work synergistically and systematically. So this is creating a powerful force in your body because you're doing a lot for your body by wearing these foundational patches. So the long and short of it is that as he wore the patches, even while he was on chemo and while he didn't really get that much radiation, even though he had scans and so forth, it was primarily, he had 5 days of chemo. After the first day in the ER, he never experienced pain or discomfort, and he's had pretty good energy where he's told Sunday on a daily basis that he feels pretty good. I believe he had a second round of chemo. The first one was 5 days. I believe the second one was also 5 days. At the 5-week mark, he had a PET scan done, and during that 5-week update, that's when we discovered that the tumor that they found in his stomach, the first 2 days that he was in the hospital, because he was admitted after his first day at the hospital, the tumor disappeared. So we knew that the patches were working. We had no idea they were going to work that fast, but they did. And then fast forward to less than a couple weeks ago, he had a second PET scan, and that PET scan showed that it was all clear. I actually have a copy of the first PET scan. These are not very good copies, but I actually have a copy of the PET scan. This is the first one, and I told Sunday that I'd like to get a copy of the most recent PET scan that was just, I think it was last week. It was right before Christmas. I thought, what a great Christmas present to get a PET scan that shows that everything is clear. So that's that. Is there any other question that you might have?
Well, I don't have a question, but I thought I had heard that using glutathione while having chemotherapy was counterintuitive. I mean, it was like one is an antioxidant, master antioxidant, and chemo is like killing everything, so it's working against each other. So you're supposed to like wait and then after chemo and then do glutathione.
So that's where because you have glutathione levels in your body already. It's just lower than, if you're going through an extraordinary uphill battle confrontation when you're doing chemo. The whole idea is that you have a foreign invader called cancer in your body that's eating you alive, right? And you want to kill that foreign invader. But in order to do that, you have to have this nuclear force called chemo that's going to come in there. And yeah, it's going to kill the cancer, but it kills a lot of the good cells too. Problem, which is why people have, terrible headaches. They have nausea. They have an adverse response because this is a toxic chemical that's intended for the cancer, but unfortunately there's the friendly cells that are also affected. So when you do the Fantastic Five, so just wearing the X39 will increase your glutathione levels by 30%. By doing the Fantastic Five and wearing this glutathione patch now, along with these others, now your glutathione levels are 300 to 600% higher. This is not external glutathione from an injection. This is the glutathione that your own stem cells are boosting from your original blueprint. So guess what? Doesn't matter if it's cancer, if it's chemo, there's a petroleum truck that drives by and, they open up their lids and there's this huge cloud of methane that, overtakes you. Doesn't matter what the source of the toxicity is. Your body is now better equipped based on your original glutathione blueprint to be exposed to that and go, not a problem. We have reinforcement here. We're 300 to 600%. Probably it's going to boost to 600% because you're in chemo. It's probably not going to be the 300 mark. Whatever the percentage is, it's what your body knows it's going to need in order to take care of getting rid of that toxin. Because as far as the body's concerned, a toxin, a bacteria, and a virus, whatever it is that is not supposed to be there, it's something that needs to be detoxed from the body. Your liver needs to go to work. Your liver's going to take care of 85% of this. Your kidneys will take care of 15% of it. And it wants to get rid of those toxins through urination, defecation, and perspiration. Sweat, pee, and poop it out. And you also exhale a little bit through your breath. As you exhale, there are some toxins that come out as well. But most of it's going to come out: perspiration, urination, and defecation. So chemo is no different than any other toxin. It's just a very aggressive, pointed thing as far as we're concerned. But the body it's still a foreign invader. It's still something that's not necessary. So in my book, it's like your body needs that boost. So I don't think it's a waste of money. I think it is a great insurance. It's a great boost. It's almost tantamount to, if you were familiar with something called a Myers cocktail. A Myers cocktail is a vitamin. It's a combination of like vitamin B complex, vitamin C, and some other vitamins that they give it to you intravenously to start to create a fertile environment of the entire body so that you can restore healing and you can rejuvenate it. And so this is better than a Myers cocktail because it's boosting the different systems that these stem cell activation patches systemically work on. So your body is much stronger and able to withstand that, taking the good, but getting rid of the bad.
That does make sense. Okay.
It doesn't. So that's why I say still through the chemo. People ask me all the time, And people through surgery, I had somebody who just went through back surgery. They did what I call the filet fish surgery, where they literally cut from your neck bump all the way down to the bottom of your coccyx, the base of your spine. They opened the flaps up, and they had to replace some of her discs because her discs had disintegrated. And they had it's basically a transplanted disc from someone who's passed away. They use that disc and they put it in the person. They mold it so that it fits perfectly in their spine, and now they have a new disc. And they also had to do an incision across her neck. Here, I can actually probably show you.
Oh, God.
Her surgery. But of course, she couldn't wear her stem cell activation patches down the back of her spine because they were going to be slicing down there. So she wore them down the front. And she's had incredible, let me see if I can show you. I don't have, she hasn't been able to take pictures of her back, to my knowledge, but she did take pictures of her neck, because they also had to put a disc in her neck. Okay. And wasn't planning. So this is, you could see the wound from the neck surgery. And then let me see if I think she sent me a more updated one. There's another one. Maybe she sent it to me on Telegram. I think it was on Telegram, not on here. Okay, yeah, it was on Telegram. So
That's okay.
So here's the day of the surgery, right after. And you could see she still has the dark markings for where they marked.
Yes.
You know, the black surgery pens that they use. And then
Yes.
this is a couple days later, a little bit better. She's doing remarkably well. And here's this other one, which is another great. You can see they have Derma Bond, which is kind of like it looks, you know, like a gun. Yeah, they've got Derma Bond on it. So she probably won't scar, especially since she's wearing these. That's the last picture I have of her. So yeah, so I would say, you know, and she was aware of that. I told her, I'm like, well, you know, you're going under this major surgery, so you know you're going to suffer a temporary traumatic brain injury from the surgery. However, you know that because you're on the stem cell activation patches, it's going to be taken care of automatically because it's part of what the stem cell activation patches work systemically. So that's kind of it. Okay.
I appreciate that regarding the anesthesia. So that's really new to me. So
Yeah, me too. I didn't know. Yeah.
Most people
caused so
don't know.
much brain injury.
Yeah, a lot of physicians don't even know about it. That was something that we discovered while doing the documentary, which was a surprise. So
well, I think that makes a lot of sense because my aunt who had broken her hip and she was in surgery for several hours, you know, she was already starting to, you know, like saying, oh, I forgot. I you know, can't remember where I left that or whatever. And then after that, she now is like in Alzheimer's stage.
Oh.
Yeah. And we had heard that after anesthesia, but never knew it was because of the brain, you know, like being traumatized. So that explains that.
Yeah. So oftentimes, most doctors, I'm not going to say that all, but most doctors will tell you, oh, that's normal for the first year to have the brain fog, to have lapses of memory, and that it is because of the anesthesia. They don't tell you that it's because it's a traumatic brain injury, but they also don't scan you for a traumatic brain injury after that. For some reason, I'm not sure why that's not brought to their attention in medical school and so forth. But we did uncover that. Like I said, Dr. Daniel Amen, he specializes in the brain, and he's done, between him and Dr. Joe, I don't know who's done more brain scans, but both of them do quite a few. And we saw them, you know, in the brain scans. And when we discovered that, we're like, holy cow, you know, that's a big thing to include in this documentary, is the fact that anyone, even if you've had general anesthetics for just an hour, that's still an hour that your brain had lower levels of oxygen that's normally provided for the brain in order for the anesthesia to work. So you have maybe a milder traumatic brain injury, but a brain injury is a brain injury is a brain
Right.
injury, and it will affect the way you are able or not able to focus. It will affect your memory, short and long. The brain processing speed, you might find yourself stuck, like searching for words and things like that. Some people have personality changes, more frustration, less impulse control. The list goes on and on and on. And we, in that film, we actually give a list of what the symptoms are. And unfortunately, when I did that film, I wasn't privy. I didn't have access to the stem cell activation patches yet, because we did the filming in 2018. So this was way before I had my hands on the stem cell activation patches. The good news is that now I do have these as a tool to use with people like yourself and people in my practice. So, and you guys can use the tool of that film. You can share that with others and let people know, because the documentary is an education piece. It's to inform people that, yes, okay, these are all the different people who had these traumatic brain injuries. And conventionally, we thought that once you had a brain injury, that was for life. And we showed how each one of them inside of a year, in 12 months, they were able to restore and get back to a happier, healthier life. And now fast forward to 2022, we can do that at a quantum level with the Fantastic Five, with
great.
Activation patches. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was very good.
Okay. Well, I will let you guys go. Thank you for tuning in, tapping.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
And when we're done with this, you'll be able to go to Love and Money Secrets TV. You can share this link with any of your friends, family, anyone that you might know that might want information about these stem cell activation patches. They'll be able to watch the replay.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Happy New Year.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.